Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Afternoon Tune. I'm your host, Josh, and with me is my co-host.
It's your boy, Chase.
And with us is our very special guest, Mary.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm really glad, you could join us and everything.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on. Where can the people find you, Mary?
You can find me on Twitter at Merrick DeVille or Merrick for America. And the way you're going to spell that is MERRICK, and DeVille is DEVILLE.
You'll get like maybe 1 or 2 new followers off of this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
But hopefully, when people start digging back in the archive, they'll come back around to this and they'll be like, all right, she was talking some good shit in the first episode.
Well, hey, followers or no followers, I'm just happy to be able to talk about this sort of stuff. So I'm happy to be here, no matter what.
I appreciate it. We definitely appreciate it. Because it's just something off about just 2 dudes talking about what we're about to talk about.
Just 2 dudes talking about wet pussy.
That normally doesn't lead to good places. So I'm happy that we have you on to talk about WAP. And also apparently DAP, because according to Ben Shapiro's wife, that exists. And that's
what is DAP?
What I like to call dry ass pussy, because that's apparently what it's supposed to be.
I was thinking dank ass pussy, but
see that? I like that.
Yeah, that's way better.
But I don't think that's what he would refer to it as.
I don't think Ben Shapiro's ever said the word dank in his life.
I don't even think he's had sex in his life, to be honest with you. Like, I think those kids are adopted. I'm not gonna hold you.
It was funny. Somebody said on Twitter, like, Ben Shapiro is the only guy ever to have kids and still be a virgin.
Yeah. First of all, ouch. If she was dry the whole time. Second of all, I just don't understand the mindset of like, why does this matter to you?
The thing is that he's like, he knows. I think it's really annoying because he knows that you get wet. Like, he knows this. The whole point he's making is about like a bucket and a mop, right? So first of all, everyone knows that rap is riddled with hyperbole. Everyone knows this. This isn't new. So him like having to take that like snarky little shot at it, it's like, quit being a bitch. You know that, first of all, this is hyperbole. And second of all, what you're really telling the internet right now is that you don't know what squirting is. It's like, okay, everybody knows that pussy needs to be wet, but like, you can't joke your way out of that. You can't be like, well, obviously I knew that, vaginas are supposed to be lubricated, but I was talking about this other thing, because then it's like, you can be like, well, that other thing is squirting, and he can't be like, well, I wasn't talking about squirting, I was talking about this other thing, because that's really all there is to it. So like, he can't actually wiggle out of that at all. That is just straight up him not knowing what squirting is.
Because he's never experienced it.
Yeah, and apparently he's never watched a porn in his entire life.
Like, to basically like add more context to what she's saying, to basically give a more broader like outline. If people already don't know what we're talking about, obviously talking about WAP, and I've heard some people call it WAP or WAP. I don't know. I think
you might want to call it WAP.
WAP, right?
Wow.
Yeah, because some people were saying that it was, because obviously WAP is a derogatory slur for Italians, even though WAP is WOP and this is WAP, so it's not, not the same thing spelling, but so I think WAP is what people call it, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I'll pronounce it differently. My apologies. I didn't mean to do that at all.
Yeah,
you're good.
Yeah, so
I don't know to speak Italian over here.
So yeah, basically just talk about that, talk about Ben Shapiro's reaction to it, and just overall, not just his reaction, but just the overall reaction a lot of people have been having about this, from politicians to political pundits to other rappers, people in the rap industry, and just an overall broader discussion.
Bad fathers.
Yeah, bad fathers, just general, opinions on the internet. Also, talk about just the nature of hip hop in general, when it comes to female rappers, and how like this is not anything new, given the history of rap in general. Like this isn't anything new, and just also cover Kamala Harris, who got named as Biden's VP. So we'll talk about that later. As well as the new Avatar live action series. So that's basically the three main topics we're going to talk about the show. But just to roll into the first major topic that we already started off with is WAP, which is Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion's new song that debuted. It was a week ago, 2 weeks ago? Really?
Yeah, it was like 6 days ago or something, right? I think it was really recent.
Yeah, a week ago. Yeah, pure week ago. And then ever since then, it has just been driving a lot of people crazy with tons of comments. For instance, you have this one by CeeLo Green, because I want to say Ben Shapiro like kind of for the last, because that's really the golden one right there. That's the real golden opinion.
Yeah,
that's just,
where
Like
that's where all the jokes lie.
Yeah, pretty much.
The final boss of reaction.
Yeah. So this is CeeLo Green. CeeLo Green, everybody, I think majority of people know him. He's had like pretty much a hit every 10 years, I guess, that he comes out, appears. Crazy. He also had a song called Fuck You. That was a big song as well. And he came out, and this is via Complex. And this is CeeLo Green. He said, a lot of music today is very unfortunate and disappointing on a personal and moral level. He explained, only later mentioning the artist by name, there was once a time when we were savvy enough to cope certain things. We could express to those it was meant for with style of language we use. But now music is shameless and its sheer savagery. And CeeLo also added, there should be a time and place for such adult content. He went on to suggest that musicians often perpetuate stereotypes, and those who have been established for a long time can be negative role models for younger artists. It's problematic. We suffer from it because there are those that have nothing to do with it, but it's amused of everyone. Basically, he gets into a lot of points that a lot of people have, and he quickly apologized when other people were dragging him on the internet. How you got to walk it back. Like a lot of people, like this one person said, CeeLo is a fucking hypocrite and sexist as fuck. It's hella rappers still putting out gang banging, drug dealing, murder music while we're continuously dying. And then in link to police statistics here, you point out women shaking their ass as distasteful and needing a time and a place. Go eat.
Well, it's not just that. Those same rappers still talk about beating up guts all the time.
Yeah, his point of just that, first of all, setting an example for young girls. That's what you'll see a lot of people talking about. It's like, what about setting an example and being a role model, and also hitting the point of, nowadays music has just gone too far and it's all sexualized. Mary, you want to jump in here at all? And
Yeah, I'm actually reading lyrics from a CeeLo Green song called Necromancer, and the lyrics are very naughty necrophilia.
Without a care, I'm compassionate about killing her. To have my way with what's left of the will in her. Cosmopolitans and cocaine and occasional pill in her.
This goes on for a while. It was so dark when I drove her home. I drove her home when she died. Sexy suicide. Have no fear. Everything is fine. My girl parties all the time. I think I like her better dead. So, I think it's really interesting. This article also goes on to talk about in 2002, Green was accused of slipping a woman an ecstasy pill without her knowledge. The woman later woke up naked in Green's bed, unaware of how she got there. Green argued that the sex the two had that night was consensual, even though by his own admission he admitted that the woman was not conscious throughout the night. So I think it's pretty rich that a rapist has anything to say about is willing to publicly take the moral position that he's taking.
Right now, I'm still gonna say it's alleged, but it is ironic that he's projecting so much of his own kind of sort of dilemmas and issues onto Cardi and Meg.
Well, okay, well, hold on. The point about alleged, though, I do want to point out, if he himself is admitting that she's unconscious, that's not like her saying that she's unconscious. That's just him saying, yeah, I mean, she wasn't awake, but I was fucking her anyway. I mean, that's still not consensual sex.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely not like forcible rape, but it's still date rape.
Yeah, no, my bad. I misheard that then. I don't think you're setting a good example for the children, CeeLo. You want to fuck dead people?
Yeah, so what we're seeing right now is really interesting. It's always like, I think it's the people who scream the loudest about things that don't directly affect them that are the people that have the most skeletons in their closets. That's something that you tend to notice. Like, a lot of politicians who are really mad about homosexuality, they get caught in hotel rooms with underage male prostitutes. They get caught tapping someone's foot in the bathroom stall. It's really interesting. And I definitely think that if you have glamorized murder or selling drugs, then you don't really have a place to speak down on women's sexual liberation. And I don't necessarily know that you get to say, even if you haven't been part of the rap industry, if you're just a man, I don't really think that you get to say, well, what message does this send to my daughter? Because, I mean, unless you're talking about like all sexual messaging in general, in which case you need to include in what you're saying, like songs like these hoes ain't loyal, bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks. Like, if your daughter hears bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks, I think that's gonna damage her a lot more than hearing like, my pussy's wet and I like to fuck.
Right.
A lot of these same dads that had the issue, they were line dancing to Slob on My Knob. Their fraternities. So it's like...
Yeah, I mean, like, Freak a Leak, Ludacris, What's Your Fantasy? All these songs that are just about fucking everywhere, all the time, just busting a nut everywhere. And it's like, that's cool. But the moment that we have sort of a shift in power dynamics as far as sexual agency and who gets to have sexual agency and what sort of agency women get to have over their own bodies and their own lives, and the level of modesty to which they are willing to publicly play in, it's all shifting power dynamics, right? So I think that people who are really insecure about things like that, and people who are very, very, very conservative, are going to be upset about stuff like that. And I just have to wonder if they even know why they're really upset.
That's a good question.
CeeLo, he did, after he, had a lot of backlash, he did apologize. He said, firstly, I am an advocate of artistic freedom and expression, as well as a fan of Nicki, Cardi, and Megan. He tweeted, I know most of them personally and consider Cardi and Offset family. Therefore, I would never disrespect them by any means. I acknowledge them as all powerful, beautiful, and influential women and professionals. I wholeheartedly apologize to each of them for the inconvenience they have been caused due to a snippet of my interview being used as a headline, and in turn creating controversy and disconnect between me and these ladies as well as their fans. The apology doesn't really address too much the root issue of the problem of him calling them out and him saying that they really kind of set a bad example.
Do you guys buy it? Or do you think he's just saying that because he got into some hot water and he doesn't want to deal with it anymore?
It's that you gotta make your money apology.
Yeah.
There's an album coming out in like a week or two, I think. So he's trying to save face.
Oh, he's trying to not get canceled right before his album drops.
Yeah, that's not a good look. I mean, like, granted, you do have this whole culture that's like, all right, like we're gonna listen to it because it got canceled, but still, you know, good core of his fan base listens to Meg and Cardi at the same time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Like following like kind of in the hip hop vein, and like with CeeLo Green, you had another person I just found today, and his name is Robbie Starbuck, and he's a guy who's actually a music video producer, right? Works in the same lane as CeeLo Green does, and he's directed music videos. He says, "I've directed rap videos for Eve, Snoop Dogg, Gucci Mane, Ty Dolla $ign, Lil Yachty, Machine Gun Kelly, Akon, and more. I am not a prude. Art can be crazy. WAP by Cardi B is not art. It's just disgusting. It's not empowering. It's degrading. It's trash. Vile trash. Poisoning youth." Now, all the artists he just listed, right? Snoop Dogg, Gucci Mane, Ty Dolla $ign, Lil Yachty, Machine Gun Kelly.
I was about to ask, what videos did he do for them? Because I'm pretty sure there's some ass shaking in all of them.
Right, you know, especially a guy like Snoop Dogg and a guy like Ty Dolla $ign and Lil Yachty. But I mean, just that tone of just like, it's not empowering, it's degrading, it's trash, vile trash, poisoning youth. Again, back to the youth point, right? You know, back to like, oh, think of the children. What about the children? You know, what would the children think?
None of these arguments are anything new. They just need to, if they're so worried about children, they need to parent better.
Well, yeah, I do think it's interesting, you know, moral posturing about what about the children. This guy, Robbie Starbuck in particular, it's interesting because Ty Dolla $ign has a song that he's on with The Weeknd where they're talking about like, I think they're talking about like a dancer, and they're like, well, if I'm going to give you all this money, are you going to give me head or not? Like, can you really take dick or not? Like, they're like saying stuff like this in their song, and he's like talking about, are you gonna bring a friend and fuck me and have a threesome with me or not? And that's okay. There's no outrage there. Women can be sexualized in that way by men so that they can then become allegedly successful capitalists and they can profit off of the imagery of women's sexuality. But then the moment that women themselves are profiting off their sexuality, now all of a sudden it's vile and it's disgusting and it's sending a bad message to children.
I'm playing a video right now of Enormous. So this is a Gucci Mane, Ty Dolla $ign. This is a video Robbie Starbuck directed. And what do you see? Like, you know, it's women and they dancing all behind Gucci Mane. You know, they're wearing revealing clothing. I mean, like, I mean, it's kind of the same stuff here. I don't know why this is okay and maybe, you know, WAP is not okay. It's too explicit. But in this case, the women, they don't have any roles here. They're just background people. All right? They're just there.
They don't have any agency. They're objects that can be utilized for whatever rapper is you know, putting out this video. They're not threatening in any way. I think it's a lot more threatening when women have agency over their own bodies.
It's a control thing.
I think so, yeah. I think it's an insecurity and a control thing.
Starbuck, he went on to say, Exhibit A, proving my point. WAP by Cardi B is degrading trash, poisoning the minds of our youth. By the way, when did it become cool for brands like Apple to be platform promoting sucking and effing and being a hoe to kids? So you know, he links to a interview that one of the women who was in the video, she's talking to like for Apple Music. I think it's like an interview. She's like, it has Cardi B and other women in it. Again, when did it become okay to, like, for big brands to associate with rappers and everything like that who talk about a bad message? Again, I mean, if you go on that, you've had tons of rappers who've been associated with brands like Nike or with brands like Gucci or with other big major brands that all have degrading music. They've talked about selling drugs. They've talked about this, you know, in their music before. and they've all been platformed by huge people and huge brands. So, I mean, by fashion industries and all types of stuff. So, again, that's, I mean, that's not really an argument. If you're going to talk about one thing, you have to be at least consistent in everything you talk about, and I just think you just don't see that level of consistency coming from these people who criticize it. And then, he went on to say, like, I'm not afraid of being canceled. I'm not afraid of being blacklisted. I can't be controlled. That's what the left fears the most. They have no power over me. I guess he's some type of maybe right-wing person. I guess that's what he is.
Yeah. So Robbie Starbuck is he's a big right-wing commentator. If you follow some of right-wing Twitter, you'll see him pop up from time to time. He has some pretty nuclear shit takes. This is not the first time I've seen Robbie Starbuck pop up and clutch his pearls about something. So, it's funny. Isn't Gucci Mane? Isn't his music on Apple? It's on their music store, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Gucci is Gucci and Future are two of my favorite real life villains. Gucci has a song. I mean, Future has been memed into the face of misogyny. Like, people unironically use that. Gucci has a song where he's talking about a guy stole some money and some weed and a watch, and then he's like, hey, I need that guy dead by 5 o'clock. He's like, no talking, no questions, I just want to hear shots. Like, that's his whole song, is about how a man needs to be dead by 5 p.m., whatever fucking time zone Gucci is in. So, the tagging Apple and just, it's just so extra. And it really leads me to believe that a lot of this is the virtue signaling that they fling onto people on the left a lot. And especially, like, anytime you've got someone being like, oh, the left, that kind of indicates to me that this is a grifter. If you are this large of a figure in politics, then you should know, hey, girls, stop. Then you should know that there's a difference between liberals and the left, but you just categorize everyone as the left. That tells me right away that you're completely insincere and completely full of shit. He does this because this is something who his audience, and if he has a Patreon or if he has a merch store or whatever, this is the sort of thing they want to hear, right? So this is like actually manufactured outrage. He probably doesn't care about this at all. If this is a man who spent a lot of his career directing rap music videos, this was just a dumb tweet that he sent off, that he made sure he put all of the right-wing buzzwords in, and then outrage is spun.
And like, speaking of like right-wing people, you had them come out. So this is like James P. Bradley. He's a Congress. He's a U.S. House candidate for the...
Oh, his tweet was amazing.
Yeah.
His tweet was absolutely incredible about this.
He said, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion are what happens when children are raised without God and without a strong father figure. I don't know if he knows their family situation or not. Probably not. I just think he probably just guessed. Took an assumption. Their new song, the WAP, which I heard accidentally. I don't know how he accidentally heard it, because is it playing on the radio?
I mean, there's no reason for him to be outside in the radio. So
I don't know if it's playing on the radio. I don't know how he heard it accidentally. I don't know. Maybe his kids was turning up to it. I don't know.
I think he tweeted this at like 10 a.m. the day that the song released, by the way.
It says 8:57 a.m. August 7th. So yeah, so maybe he heard all his other friends talking about it, and then he was like, okay, well, I gotta talk about it. All my other friends are talking about this.
Yeah, he was like, I hated it. I hated the tiny outfits. I hated the twerking. I had to watch just to know. I didn't want to do it. I hated it, but I definitely watched the whole thing, and it was terrible, and I didn't love it.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, you loved that. You loved every second of that.
They said,
he's jerking off to it.
He said, made me want to.
Yeah,
he said it made me want to pour holy water in my ears, and I feel sorry for future girls if this is their role model. Again, same talking points, right? Role model, youth, thinking of the women. I mean, listen, this is the thing about something like that, and another like right-wing kind of person, Deanna Loren, who is another congressperson. It says Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion just set the entire female gender back 100 years with this disgusting and vile song, like stuff like that. So the discussion of something like that, and she also added to that statement, remember Bernie Sanders' campaign with Cardi B. Kamala Harris called her a role model. The Democrats support this trash and depravity. So trying to spin it, political thing, attack the Democrats because, situations like that. She also called it to be banned. The Deanna woman, she called it to be banned. So this thing, when people say something like, this is vile, this is trashy, it's setting a bad example for young girls, they act like there's never been any raunchy song or terrible song ever before. Like, hearing people, like, a lot of people grew up on Lil' Kim. A lot of people grew up on Foxy Brown. A lot of people grew up on songs like this.
All you ladies pop your pussy like this. Shake your body, don't stop, don't miss. All you ladies pop your pussy like this. Shake your body, don't stop, don't miss. Just do it, do it, do it, do it, do it now. Lick it good, suck this pussy just like you should. Right now, lick it good, suck this pussy just like you should. My neck, my back, lick my pussy and my crack. My neck.
And that song came out in 2001.
Wow.
So that was 19 years ago.
I didn't know it was so old.
Yeah. And that's a classic. Everybody remembers that song, again. And people remember it. It didn't poison entire youth, right? So you could say, like, well, now kids have more access to things because of the internet. But there were always kids who would, watch stuff like that, like BET Uncut, and listen to that type of music. Like, there's always going to be people who do those type of things.
But it's up to the parent too. Like, a lot of y'all that complain about this type of stuff don't take the precautions that you think you do or claim to do in terms of just like making sure your like 10-year-old doesn't watch anything allegedly mature. Like, y'all can control that, like, while also letting artists do their thing and make their own art the way they want to and be explicit as much as they want to. Like, that's not their problem to raise your kid. You gotta raise your own kid in terms of the values that whatever you believe in,
Sure, and this coming from the party of personal responsibility, it just absolutely kills me.
Yeah, your bootstraps, right?
Yeah.
Raise your kids with your own bootstraps. Stop depending on these rappers to raise your kids.
Yeah, this woman, the Deanne woman, I think that putting women back 100 years is really funny because it comes down to this idea. It's an extremely patriarchal idea that it's feminism for me, but not for thee. Like, you're not doing feminism my way, so you're not doing feminism, which or you're doing a bad feminism, which I think is really, really funny because that's kind of counter to the entire idea of feminism. We have this persistent idea that if you're sexual in any way, you don't really have a place in the feminism movement, and that you are only feeding into what the patriarchy wants, which is allowing men to see and hear sexualized imagery from women. I don't know why that's a bad thing, because we're also not supposed to hate men, but yet we're supposed to hate men enough to deny them any sort of sexual imagery, or it's like a reward that has to be metered out because men are like dogs that need a treat when they're good. Like, I just think it's such a sexist, damaging idea for both men and women for her to say something like that, because she's like, well, a woman's place is not being sexual, and if you are sexual, you have rolled back progress because now that you said you had a wet pussy, all men everywhere don't respect women, and I guess if we're going back 100 years, now we can't vote anymore. It's such a ridiculous, over-the-top statement to make that it's actually kind of funny. If it wasn't so frustrating, it would be kind of funny because of how just dumb it is.
Right. Yeah.
And I have a similar. Oh, my bad, Josh.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I have a similar take in terms of regarding to the incels out there, because I know you're listening. I just want you to know that if you embraced WAP, if you embraced women coming forward and being comfortable to express their sexuality, I guarantee some of y'all might get laid and might stop being incels. Now, hear me out. The theory behind this is, like, if women are allowed to be more comfortable and socially acceptable in terms of discussing their sexuality and then also being able to say no without having to suffer repercussions, I think, like, the world would be, like, the internet would be a much better place. There'd be a lot less incels.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I mean, we'd have a lot more relaxed people. I think if people were just cool about sexuality and they didn't have like a weird stick up their ass, yeah, I think a lot more people would get laid, but also a lot more people would have more meaningful relationships with their partners too.
That's like the big thing, because I feel like a lot of people, we get stuck in like these echo chambers where, like, if you didn't, like, say like an incel, he didn't grow up maybe loving his mom as much as he probably should have, or they didn't have a good relationship. I'm assuming he doesn't really have that many female relationships, so he's just going off of it, what he sees on the internet as stereotypes and as, like, you know, just stupid. So he doesn't have the interaction or the sense of empathy that, say, somebody who has those relationships with women have, you know? So I think, like, if we... What were you about to say, Josh?
I was about to transition into something like a personal, basically the Superman of incels, like their personal hero. But you go ahead and finish your thought there.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, if women were allowed to be comfortable socially to discuss just having a wet pussy, then they'd also be comfortable with coming forward to these incels who they might find attractive for all they know, and they might make a move, because that's what a lot of these incels need. They just need somebody to make a move on them. Just so they can finally meet somebody and have empathy for them.
Well, or they need to hate women less, because there's a lot of, like, hatred of women. I think if you kind of let go a lot of these preconceived notions you have about how people are supposed to act, you'll have better relationships with people. And this is for women too. Like, women who expect men to just give them everything and do everything and provide everything and fit all these crazy standards. Like, we mock and ridicule girls like that. It's literally the same with incels. Like, you want all these crazy things from women, but if you just kind of loosen up and realize that people are not, you know, NPCs, they're their own human beings, and you learn to be less selfish and you learn to adapt to that, you're probably going to attract more people to you because you're going to be a laid back, more reasonable person.
Yeah. I like that quote. People aren't NPCs. We're all the protagonists of our own story.
Yeah.
But speaking of the king,
the final boss here.
Here are some of the lyrics. You ready?
I'm Marquise.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pull out game weak. Yeah. Yeah, you effing with some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you got for this wet ass P word.
And he talked about it on his show Daily Wire. And this is his tweet about it. He said,
"Listen, guys, I fully explained on the show that it's misogynist to question whether graphic depictions of wet ass P word is empowering for women. WAP is obviously an incredibly profound statement on women's empowerment, a la Susan B. Anthony, so he's being
sarcastic here. And then he does a complete self-own here. He just walks himself right into a joke, not even aware of it. He says,
as I also discussed on the show, my only real concern is that the woman involved, who apparently require a bucket and a mop, get the medical care that they require. My doctor wife's differential diagnosis, bacterial vaginosis, yeast infection, or trichomonas.
So basically, I mean, he's trying to be funny, but he doesn't understand. He's walking himself into a joke and saying that the only way he thinks a woman can get wet is if there's something physically wrong with her. Like somebody mentioned above and below, and they said, Ben, does your doctor wife tell you she can't get wet because she doesn't have these medical issues? Like, so
I think that was Cody Johnston, wasn't it? Cody Johnson.
Yeah. And his tweet got way more likes than either of his tweets. His tweet got like 38,000 likes on or favorites on it. So it just, like to hear his discussion of the song. He said, like, this is what feminists want. This is what they want. When he doesn't understand, I don't know if people, and I guess you'll speak more to this, Mary, but like people have this one idea of what feminism is and not understand there's multiple types of feminism, and that they just kind of lump it all into one thing and don't really understand that there's multiple types and different opinions on it.
Right. It's this thinking that like women are a monolith. So when you talk about thoughts on feminism and sex negativity, you have to contend with both people who are right-wing and reactionaries and conservatives, but then you also have a segment of sex-negative feminists as well, and swerfs and all that kind of thing. I was having a conversation with a guy who is a self-proclaimed feminist the other day, and he was like, listen, Megan and Cardi are just doing exactly what they're supposed to do. The industry just wants them to be sexual, like they're just feeding right into patriarchal standards, which I think is, I think that's someone trying to be an ally, but someone very confused. So there's definitely these schools of thought that you can't appeal to men's sexual nature in any way because for so long we as women didn't really have choices about who we were going to be married to, when we got to have sex, how we didn't get to talk about it, we didn't get to wear pants. There's a lot of oppression. There's millennia of oppression that we've dealt with, and so there's this idea that for you to be sexual is for you to reduce yourselves down to an object or a sex toy, and there's nothing beyond that, right? And so Ben touches on that when he says, this is what feminism fought for, a la Susan B. Anthony. And that in itself is also a really funny thing for him to bring up, considering that Susan B. Anthony was a lesbian. And she had lots of sexual relationships with other women. So he's the kind of person that, were he alive when Susan B. Anthony was, he would be the kind of person who wouldn't allow her to be herself either. So to invoke her name is pretty shitty, and pretty rich for him to try to make the point that way. But yeah, I mean, there's this idea that this isn't feminism, and I couldn't disagree more, because I think that feminism is anything that bucks the patriarchy, and under patriarchy, you are allowed to be sexual, but you're allowed to be sexual when and how a man wants you to be. So I think that we need to look at sort of the subtext of this song, and that is very unashamed. It's very in your face. It's very aggressive. It's unapologetic. And that's brave. And I know it's really easy to be like, oh, it's brave to be a thought. Well, yeah, kind of. People hate women who are unashamed and unapologetic about their sexualities. And it is revolutionary to go, I will have agency over my body, and I will have agency over my sexuality. And if you don't like it, well, you can lick my boot. that's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy image to present. And if you look at a lot of Megan's songs and a lot of the things that Megan says, you see things like that. You see these recurring messages. And Cardi's the same way. These are not women who are portraying an image to young girls of being a passive object. These are women who are saying, yes, you can be sexual. That's a part of the human experience, right? Like, that's part of the spectrum, and that does make you a whole and complete person. You can be that, and you can also be like Megan. Like, Megan is a vegan, and she cares about the environment. Cardi backed Bernie Sanders, and she talks about progressive ideals. She talks about meeting with Joe Biden and trying to talk to him about progressive changes. So that is what feminism looks like. It's agency over your body, agency over your sexuality, and that being okay, and you're still being a whole and complete person who is every bit as worthy of being taken seriously and treated as an equal by men.
To your point about what your friend said to you, right? About like, this is what people want, right? This is what the patriarchy wants, right? To your point about that, like, do you think it's tough to distinguish, like, when women do this type of thing, where it's like, how much of it is they're doing it because they want to do it, and they feel like, okay, this is what I want to do because this is just like who I am, it's my brand, it's what I want to do, and how much of it is like the studio pressuring them to do it, like the record label that they're signed to, how much of that is like them pressuring them to do it because it's like, hey, this, sex sells. I mean, how do you try and distinguish both of those things?
So that is a good question. I think that there are probably some sexual performances where it would be really valid to question that. That being said, I think this comes back to subtext, right? We tend to be really bad at understanding subtext and subtlety in this country. And I don't know if that's because we have embraced anti-intellectualism so much, or because we don't prioritize empathy. I don't really know what it is, but it also comes back to what I was saying before. Being a woman who is sexual in a way that is very aggressive, that's not exactly popular. Sex sells, it does, but a lot of men would like you to be sexual and docile. So if we're really concerned with using sexuality as a way to sell records, this isn't really the most tactical or practical way to go about that. So that's going to be a much harder thing to convince me personally of. I spent about 6 years in the strip club, and I've done porn for about 2. So I'm heavily involved in the sex industry. And you probably don't know this, but you found me through my political Twitter. I have another Twitter that I've had for much longer where I'm connected almost entirely to sex workers. So I'm surrounded by women who have various different attitudes and approaches towards how they express their sexuality and faking it and selling it, right? So this is not new for me. The image that Megan and Cardi put out, not only is it not the most popular in terms of what's going to sell if we're talking about purely profit-driven things here, it's also really hard to fake. If you're a more docile or more not in touch with your own sexuality, if you're a woman who's like that, it's really hard to be that aggressive and to sell it and to carry that energy. That's something that to me, when I see it, I think it's real. I'm the same way. I'm very aggressive. I'm not going to dress up in frilly little outfits and pretend to look young and put my hair in pigtails and try to sell feet pictures. I'm not going to do that. I'm more of a, you're going to pay an hour in VIP to lick the kind of, lick my boots kind of girl. So when I see that, I definitely think that it's very real. I think that energy is very difficult to fake.
Okay. And I don't know, Chase, do you have any input on that at all? Like your thoughts?
I'm just kind of taking away that whole what you said about like agency. Like, why are certain men so afraid of women having agency?
people are afraid of any kind of power dynamic shift. It's the same reason why dumb white people are afraid of BLM, because they think it's some sort of black supremacy, when it's not. But the way that they know how to look through a racial lens is one of white supremacy, right? So that's a shift in power dynamics, and that's scary. It's the same with people who are scared of trans people and then being able to use whatever bathroom they want, or people who are scared of homeless people, right? Like, trans people, homeless people, and people who are mentally ill are much more likely to be victims than to be criminals, but they've always been marginalized and on the dregs of society, on the outside, right? So, like, women who are aggressive and sexual, the way that Cardi and Meghan are, have typically been, well, full service workers, on the dregs of society, not really in the spotlight. Typically, when you see cocky sexuality, it comes from men. So I think that people who are insecure, or who were never really given a firm understanding of themselves and other people, are going to be scared of power shifting. And maybe that does come down to what I said earlier, which is anti-intellectualism and a lack of emphasis on empathy. I think if you can empathize with other people, they're not really that scary. But if you see things, if you don't understand other people very well, and you've never really made an attempt, yeah, you're gonna be scared when it seems like they're gaining footing on you. But that's just conjecture on my part.
Because you see reactions from, like, conservative people, right? So you expect them to really react that way about something like this. But you also see a reaction from like this from also the black community, right? Specifically black men, right? And I'm going to pull up a video here, and this guy has a very big brain take. I don't think my brain could fully wrap around this.
Single motherhood. Where does that lead them? Raising kids by themselves. Where does that leave them? Kids getting raised in the hood, getting gunned down. Where does that lead them? Them being easily influenced to be on that thug nigga shit. See, but these women, when it comes to the whole culture, that's all that really happens to them. You know what I'm saying? This is why they can run around and think it's games and be hoes and all that, and then have these babies, and then they babies start dying in their neighborhood. Because for the females, okay, you on some hoe shit, you gonna have a baby, but you gonna get rewarded for the baby with your section, and you gonna be in that project and raise your sons. Your sons is gonna grow up and get gunned down and be on the thug shit and be murdered, because it's black men being murdered in the streets. These murders in Chicago, who being murdered? Black men, black boys. These murders in Baltimore, who's being murdered? Black men, black boys. These murders in Atlanta, who's being murdered? Black men, black boys. These murders in Oakland, in Memphis, in Miami. Everywhere you go. New York City, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. Is little niggas that came from households, from little, well, once upon a time, girls who became women who act like this. Who got the mentality like this. See, but they don't understand that. They don't see how promoting that culture leads to having more babies to be raised to go to prison and get murdered in the streets. There's a direct connection to that.
I don't see that direct connection. I don't see that. Do I need glasses? I don't fucking see that connection.
It just seems like he's sort of mistaking the problem of cyclical poverty on women and their actions instead of like a lack of access to resources and education.
Seems like he's conflating systematic racism and, like he says, cyclical poverty and issues with gang culture, and issues with, maybe fathers not being there for their children, which is why they get into gang culture, and why they do the things that they do, and just putting it on thought culture of women having babies, and then that's what they're raising kids that are specifically like that's the direct connection to the pipeline to prison. Yeah.
Well, don't you know that everything that's wrong in the world is because women want to get off?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and things like
It's
that.
all connected.
And like you have, those type of takes from black men specifically, like with his take and CeeLo Green's take of this very conservative attitude, but more, with men, they can talk about sex, they can talk about all those types of things. They can literally have on their albums sex skits where they, like every time I do that, like every time I listen to that, I go, why would I want to listen to a skit of you having sex? Yeah. Like I believe, was it The Game that did that, or I forgot exactly maybe who, but like he put a whole, yeah,
the ego is out of control.
Like I love Biggie, but
yeah,
I didn't need to hear that.
Yeah, like why would I care about you having sex? Why would I need a whole skit of you miming of you having sex with a woman? Like that is unnecessary. And when you really think about it, it's like, think about like, do they really think, like, you have to think, like, I saw a good tweet about this, and someone says, like, me, a heterosexual man, would rather listen to another heterosexual man have sex with a woman and talk about how he's getting off than two attractive women talking about how they get off and having sex with some other guy. Like, I'd rather listen to the straight guy talking about him having sex and how big his dick is than me as a heterosexual man, rather than the two women. Like, that's fucking stupid. Like, why would I want to listen to that over the other one? And
fellas, is it gay to be a misogynist?
It's just like kind of a crazy thought. Like, you're so hyper masculine that it's almost gay. It's like, what are you talking about? And one of the criticisms also is, as far as like, will you promote, it's the same thing people say about mumble rappers, right? It's like, will you promote this type of music, but like mumble rappers like Lil Yachty or Lil Pump or Lil Peep or Lil Fuckhead or whoever the next little nigga is, but you don't pump up artists, tons of artists with lyrical music, and this is via Genius. So Cardi B, she was talking about the whole controversy with it and everything with WAP and everything. This is in a recent interview with Apple Music. Cardi reflected on criticism she receives for her lyrics. She also called out fans who degrade for female rappers for being sexual, but do not support ones who rap about woke topics. And she says, people be lying. Cardi said when discussing the topic of sexually explicit rap lyrics, people be saying don't like hoes and they don't like pussy talk. People love it. And then Cardi also says, like, you don't stream those rappers that you always talk about being lyrical rappers. Like, there are tons of female lyrical rappers, like No Name, she mentions, Rap City, Tira Whack, to name a few. But you don't stream, people don't stream them like they stream Cardi B. They don't stream them like they may stream, other, like maybe the City Girls or, maybe Flo Milli or somebody like that. They just don't do the same thing. Even though when Rhapsody, when she came out with her project, it was one of the best rap projects of the year. It was called Layla's Wisdom. It was an amazing project. Like, it was really, really good. And No Name has been on the scene for a while, but they don't get that same attention because, like, you put so much energy into talking about somebody like Cardi B, but you don't put that same energy as you do when you talk about a No Name, when you talk about a Rhapsody, when you talk about Tira Whack. And it's the same thing, conversation people have about mumble rappers. It's like you putting all this energy into, fucking little, medicine cabinet or who the fuck ever, but you're not putting that same energy into like other, smaller, like maybe like a JID or like a JID or something like that, or like a Earl Sweatshirt, like you're not putting that same amount of energy as you put in those people. I mean, do you want to comment on that, Chase, at all, or?
I don't think it's fair to have to compare Rhapsody to Cardi. They do two different kind of, like, I feel like rap in itself, we just placed it all in like this like confines of what it should be or what it should not be. But there's like at least 3 to 4 different genres in rap itself. And Cardi makes more pop rap, while Rhapsody makes more of the traditional 90s lyrical rap. And they can coexist.
And now before like 10 years ago, 11 years ago, or 20 years ago, you had you could only name rappers, like female rappers on a hand, right? You could only maybe count maybe a few that were really popular, that were really doing it. Like there's a lot more variety now than it ever was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, probably, because you can say, oh, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, but you also have like City Girls, like I said, Flo Milli, you got Rhapsody, you got Tara Whack, you got No Name, you have Rico Nasty, you have Princess Nokia, but you got a lot of women really doing their things, all operating different lanes, all really kind of doing different things stylistically. Like if you want to look at somebody that's really, really vulgar, like Cupcake. Like, look her up. Like, she does a lot of super vulgar stuff, you know what I mean? Overall, just to wrap it up, I mean, people are just kind of overreacting to it. It's like, listen, like, if you say, like, role models, like, what about the youth? There's been tons of artists who've come along, who've done vulgar things, said vulgar things. When people try to make this statement, older people, that, music today is so vulgar, and, like, nothing was ever like that before. Tons of examples. It's really not the job of like famous people to be role models for your kids. That's kind of your job to do that, and your job to kind of parent your kid and to guide them in the right direction and hope they make the right decisions, and not copy all the behavior they see on television or in movies or in music videos or anything like that. And just overall, there are other female artists out there that are doing it. And when people say like, well, you don't see white female artists doing this type of stuff like you see how black female artists do. And with black female artists, there's more of an emphasis to sell sex. Well, you had somebody like, and my response to that would be, you had people like Miley Cyrus, right? When she was going through her whole big phase and everything like that, she's still doing it, wearing like dressing up and, wearing dildos and stuff like that. She's still going out there doing, weird kind of crazy sex stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like she's still doing that. You had, Lana Del Rey, you have her where she'll dance on a stripping pole, even though that's, I don't know, I mean, that's not too crazy. But, you have people like that who do things like that, right? White female artists. I don't think necessarily it's purely a black thing. I mean, just to have your thought on that and then closing thoughts on it.
Well, I kind of just have one last closing thought on this, because I do think we hold women to a higher standard than we do men in terms of artistry, in terms of music. And to Mary's point, like there is that like control dynamic that we still have for whatever reason, and it could all be solved by 4 words: mind your fucking business. Like, it's just like simple as that. Like women can do whatever they want on their own time whenever they want to. That should be acceptable,
Well, I'm watching this video of Miley Cyrus twerking. I don't think she don't need to be doing that. She ain't. It's goddamn. I could bend her over and goddamn eat some pancakes off her fucking back. Holy shit.
Did you need to watch it though? That you could just turn off the tab.
True, but I'm trying to really help her out. I'm trying to give her some advice, Trying to help her.
Okay. You're trying to mansplain some advice. I get it.
Yeah. But let's close out, all this talk about the song, let's close out with actual lyrics from the song. Let's actually close out with that.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Pull out game week. Yeah.
I like this better than the original.
With some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P word. Beat it up, N-word. Catch a charge. Extra.
I like that better than the original.
You know he be saying the N word on the low. He didn't need to censor himself. We all know he says it.
Yeah. Oh man. That it's just fucking like he can't even just. It's so corny coming. It's just incredibly corny. Oh my god! Like he's just having a heart attack reading it. So let's move on to the other topic of the day. Biden finally picked his VP. After all that, after it's basically like The Bachelor. It was after all these women, he finally gave his dementia rose to Kamala Harris. Who basically, a lot of people, she was pretty much the front runner for, while these things were going on. Like other names got tossed around, like Elizabeth Warren, Stacey Abrams, Amy Klobuchar, Governor Whitmore from Michigan, Tammy Duckworth, Susan Rice, Karen Bass. Am I missing anybody? I think I'm missing another person in the whole sweepstakes.
Those are the big names, but he kind of just made us wait months just to pick the most obvious pick that we knew he was going to pick. Like Trump had that whole ad in his drafts, waiting for months.
Yeah. As soon as he announced his VP, I gotta admit, listen, they are fast. Trump campaign, they're fast. They get out those attack ads quick. They don't waste no time. So
they hit on like all the wrong points.
Yeah, like instead of like, I guess, because the attacks against her that she's a far left radical and a Marxist, and now people calling her a communist, and that I guess maybe they think that's a better attack on her rather than her prosecution record. That's maybe because actually maybe they'll think that makes her look good. The right wing people, it's like, well, she locked up a lot of people, a lot of black people. Well, that sounds good to me. Yeah, like why wouldn't I want her there? So maybe they think that makes her look too good. So maybe they're going with the whole far left radical thing. They don't think that works. But the only people that would really believe, like, if you really believe that, like, you would have to be somebody that's already on the right and just trying to go with it because you just don't like the other side, or you're just fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Because you're just really fucking stupid.
Because if you honestly think Kamala Harris is going to take your guns away, she's gonna take your health care that you don't currently have because you're probably unemployed right now. She's gonna move everything to Antifa, then you've got the wrong woman. Like, she does not fuck with us, like black people. She's not gonna legalize weed. We know that off the gate. Joe Biden recently just had an interview with Yahoo, where the lady she pressed Biden on whether or not he was open to the idea of Medicaid for all, and he was like, still no.
Before the pandemic, you were against comprehensive single-payer system. Now, if Medicare for all came across your desk as the pandemic has hit so hard, would you veto it?
It's not going to come across my desk.
So we know where Kamala stands. She was with it one day, and then she was against it the other.
Yeah, she was with Bernie Sanders on it at one time, and then she was like, no, actually, I'm not with him anymore. Now, do you think that's a good thing, or do you think that's a bad thing?
Oh, no, I think both. I think it's shitty. I think the hand that we were dealt in terms of who we're voting for is terrible. But in terms of, if I was, like, say, a conservative, if I was worried that the left, like the far left, was going to take us down a communist socialist path, not with these two idiots. not with Joe and not with Kamala. That's the least of your concerns. They'd honestly get you back to the status quo.
Yeah. Do you think that her flip-flopping like that, do you think that makes her more susceptible to pressure Like, let's say she does get in there and is in the White House with Biden, and she gets all this pressure, all this criticism. Do you think that makes her more susceptible to being pressured and more pushed? Because I bet everybody's under the impression that you can push Biden and Harris left when they get in there, that they're more susceptible to that type of stuff. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, with Biden as the president, who has emphatically denied literally every attempt by the left to push him more left, they're not gonna budge. They know who they work for. We know who they work for, you know? They don't work for us. They work for corporations.
Yeah. They're backed by healthcare, credit card companies, Wall Street. And Wall Street, they came out and they said they were ecstatic to have Kamala Harris as to be ecstatic, you know. Do you want to go through do you think that Kamala Harris, like, always from the beginning he was always going to pick her, or do you think the reason he waited so long was because he really was kind of interviewing and really deep diving at everybody that was really mentioned?
I don't know. I mean, I can't really tell. I just think the choice was obvious. As soon as he said I'm picking a woman, and then clarified that I'm picking a woman of color, the easiest choice for him was to pick the person that the media was trying to shove in our faces to begin with to vote for, which was Kamala, and just be like, oh, here you go, because she covers all the bases. She's black and she's Asian. I think she's Indian, right? Yep. So she's black and she's Indian, and she's gonna be the first to be the nominee for vice president in terms of, you know, hitting all those check marks. So I feel like in terms of like a press run, this was like it's not the perfect pick, but it's the pick that he thinks is gonna win him the ticket. But I think it's ironic because if you paid attention to the primaries, Kamala was not in it for long. She didn't last. She lasted like not even till Iowa.
She only polled like 3%.
Yeah.
When she was running, she only polled like 3%, which begs to ask the question: what does she really bring to the table? And when I mean that, I don't mean like from a professional level or from a, you know, is she ready level, you know, as far as that any of that goes. I mean from a level of demographic, because if you're gonna think you're gonna pick her to like really energize the black vote, she didn't do all that. She didn't do well with the black vote. Like everybody else pretty much crushed her in the black vote. That's why she had to drop out before Iowa.
I think Kanye pulled like 3% of the black vote, and she pulled around that.
Yeah. I mean, Kanye has like a 2% like polling, like 2% or something like that, and she had 3%, so she did 1% better. And then even in her own state, when she was in California, she only came in like 4th, like even in her own state. So there was a lot of people who really wanted her. I mean, there was a lot of people who also really wanted Warren as well. I think Warren was also a big person that a lot of people really wanted as well. And there was a lot of media people saying like, well, he should also pick Warren. I heard a lot of Warren as well. I think that in the situation, the people who are really excited that Kamala Harris is his VP, because like you said, she's black and she's a woman and all the things you mentioned, are going to vote for Joe Biden anyway.
Yeah.
There were already people that are going to, because they recognize, like, listen, I don't care what Joe Biden says. I don't care what he does. You know, I'm going to vote for him regardless. So he can do whatever he wants. You know, it doesn't matter to me. So that's I don't think it really doesn't do anything for those type of people. You know, even the people who said like, well, he better pick a woman of color, like they're probably still going to vote for him anyway. What he really needed help with was the younger millennial, even the younger black vote, because that's what he's lacking. How well is he doing on Hispanic support? I don't think he's doing that. Is he doing strong on Hispanic support?
I don't have the statistics, but I know in Texas he's doing all right. Like, he's doing well enough to potentially win Texas. But I think the problem with Kamala is that the attempt with his VP pick and what the VP pick is supposed to do is the pick is supposed to unite the party around them, and
supposed to bring in a demographic you can't already get yourself.
Yeah, and Kamala doesn't really do that. She doesn't appeal to young people the way the media tries to make her. Like, they have her dancing around, and she can dance, but like, I still don't like her criminal justice record. Like, yeah, she was an AKA, but like, she also locked up thousands of drug dealers and like marijuana drug dealers with just, and they're still in jail and they're still suffering the consequences of her leadership as DA. Because according to some statistics, when she took office in 2004, the percentage of convictions for drug dealers went from 56% to 74%. And, just like having an arrest record, just having a record in general will exclude you from a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunities,
Right.
So, and just to have it over, say, like a gram or like, just any ounce of weed, is ridiculous in a state where it's not legal.
Yeah. And what really pissed people off is like her on the Breakfast Club, laughing about, it's like, yeah, I smoke weed, but I didn't inhale, and she said, I did inhale, I'm Jamaican, I did inhale and things like that. When you just prosecuted all these people for weed, for these offenses. And do you know currently if her stance is still anti-weed, like she won't legalize it currently?
Oh, Joe's not for legalizing it, so she's gonna fall in line.
And just to play the clip I'm talking about, like on the Breakfast Club, like here's the clip right here. This is what I'm talking about. Like, and also, I can't trust anybody who like always laughs after everything they say. It's just very serial killery, it's like, oh yeah, I locked up kids for truancy, like that's very weird, like laughing like that. But here's context. Here's the clip I'm talking about from the Breakfast Club right here.
No.
Also, and I know the answer to this too, they say you oppose legalizing weed.
That's not true.
I know.
and look, I joke about it, half joking. Half my family's from Jamaica. Are you kidding me?
They be so mad at you.
Right. Yeah. No, I do not. No. I have had concerns. The full record. I have had concerns, which I think first of all, let me just make the statement very clear. I believe we need to legalize marijuana. Now, that being said, this is not a but, it is an and we need to research, which is one of the reasons we need to legalize it. We need to move it on the schedule so that we can research the impact of weed based on a developing brain. That part of the brain that develops judgment.
So a lot of there, she's talking about legalizing marijuana and studies and developments like on the brain, like, because she's like kind of one of those kind of people that believes like weed can really seriously damage you and things of that nature. So out of all the picks that he could have picked from, do you think Harris was the best option? Do you think? No. Who would have been better?
I don't really know who could have been better.
Do you think Warren could have been better?
Slightly, but still, would have pissed off a lot of people because of Warren's own actions throughout the primary, where she kind of just threw Bernie under the bus. But because then the narrative would have been Elizabeth threw Bernie under the bus for the VP slot. I don't think that would have united the party at all either. Obviously AOC would have been like the wishful pick, but like, yeah, she's too young. So in the event that he were to, because let's be real, Joe's on the downfall. He's on the decline right now. He's only, if he makes it past this term, when he's hopefully president, he's probably not going to run for his second term. But it just should have been a pick that would have united the party, if he really wanted to make a big deal about it. But I do think, on the bright side, Kamala is a cop, so that might bring some conservatives that were concerned about law and order and black people looting around. Yeah. So maybe that, maybe he's making a 400 IQ big brain play to get the conservatives on his side, because fuck the left, am I right?
I mean, that depends if they're listening to the right-wing pundits who say she's a far-left radical that wants to defund the police and everything like that and take money away from them, and she's a Marxist and communist.
Well, if they do their Googles, they'll quickly find out that she's not any of that.
All you have to do is just share this clip of when Tulsi Gabbard hammered Kamala Harris and she didn't have an answer for it in the debates. In this clip right here.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response?
And these are all things conservatives love. So, Yeah.
And she never really had a good comeback for that. Like when they did the after interview, Anderson Cooper, she did the post interview there. She just kind of went with the whole talking points of Tulsi Gabbard, like, Assange, and she's buddies with him, and he's a dictator, and she's buddies with him, and that, and tried to go like, and she tried to say, well, I'm the front runner, so I knew that I had to be a target on my back, and and she tried to insult Tulsi by going like, well, she's only like at 2%, 3%, something like that. So she had to make a name for herself. Even though at the all end of it, Tulsi Gabbard had more delegates than Kamala Harris. When it was all said and done.
I think Tulsi was the last one to concede.
Yeah, she stayed in. Yeah, I don't know why, but she stayed in. I don't know why she did that, but hey, whatever. I mean, she got 2 delegates, so yeah. So I guess good for her, I guess, But yeah, she stayed in all the way to the end. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, I guess it's a safe pick that won't upset the establishment people, and you think like. It's also like, Kamala Harris black, she's a woman, so anybody who dares to question her and question her record, well, you obviously must be a sexist and a racist that hates women, so,
That's why Hillary lost, right?
Yeah, I mean,
everybody was sexist.
Yeah.
Not everybody hated her because of her record.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, listen, if a woman's running for that type of position, she's gonna face sexism, just like how Obama, when he was running, he faced racism, right? And like Kamala, there was a mayor, and I forgot which mayor it was, but he said Joe Biden picked his Aunt Jemima, right? And that's so. You know, you have people, and it was the Virginia mayor, and people are asking him to resign. And he said, like, Virginia mayor urged to resign after making Aunt Jemima comments about Biden picking Harris. His name is Mayor Barry Prisgraves, and he said, hell no, he won't resign. But yeah, I mean, so you have people like that who will make these racist attacks to her. So, like, there's so many other things you could attack her on her record, but you're just such a fucking idiot and a racist that's all you can see. And, you know, that you're going to go for these obvious slurs and things like that because you're just a moron. And then those people kind of get conflated with the people who actually have legitimate criticisms of her and her record and things like that. So,
yeah. And if you wanna get into more of her absurd critics, like the president, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the president actually donated to her campaign a couple times, actually, in 2011 and in 2013. And also Ivanka donated to her campaign in 2014 as well. So, you know, everybody's in the pockets. Everybody's in pockets. The whole reason why Steve Mnuchin isn't even in jail is because of Kamala. Because she failed to prosecute his bank, One West, for their foreclosure violations in 2013. And as a reward, Steve Mnuchin may have allegedly donated to her campaign in 2016. So, you know, I just think it's so ironic that we think that all these guys are enemies or whatever, or like, but they're actually just all playing the same game, all playing in the same pocket, sharing money, making money off of people suffering.
Pretty much, yeah. So I mean, so you don't think it increases Biden's chances at all picking Harris? I mean, because I think I read somewhere that the donations for the Biden campaign actually went up when Harris was picked.
That's all just K-Hive.
No, yeah, pretty much they just donate all their life savings into the campaign.
Which, by the way, K-Hive, I don't want to fight you. I don't know if you've been on the internet where they are, but they're terrifying.
Oh yeah. I've had run-ins with them on Twitter and everything, and they've doxed a lot of people and tried to, like, one person told a story. They were like, they doxed me and then called CPS to try to get my kid taken away and things like that, and yeah, so.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna edit this like precursor at the beginning of this whole part where we talk about Kamala, where, hey, K-Hive, we want no smoke. We're just talking facts. We're still gonna vote for Biden.
I'm not voting for Biden. I'm not voting for Biden.
Yeah, don't say that out loud. So, speaking of disappointments, the original creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender have exited the Netflix adaptation, live-action adaptation of their property. How does that make you feel, Josh?
Well, I wasn't having much faith in the planned live-action adaptation anyway. I don't even understand why you're doing a live-action adaptation. And then now them leaving, the original creators leaving the project just basically puts the final nail in the coffin of any interest I have in seeing this at all. Well, I don't know, if people say it's incredibly terrible, I might check it out, or if it's incredibly good, I might check it out. But being a big fan of the animated series when it came on, but you can watch all the animated series they put on Netflix very recently, like a couple months ago. I think it's probably the greatest animated series ever made. I just don't really have no need to watch it in live action. especially since they've done an incredibly poor attempt with when they did the movie, and the movie had the similar situation of the creators not even having much input on the movie, and it seems like the same situation here, while now the creators are not involved.
I think here it's even worse, or potentially could be even worse, because the creative differences that Netflix and Brian Konietzko and Michael DiMartino had issues with seem to have been budget constraints, casting choices, and the tone of the show was going to be more mature, or that's what Netflix wanted to do. So the first thing that is a problem is the budget constraints, because if you remember the first season, Josh, these kids traveled across the world.
Yeah.
From the South Pole to the North Pole, in very different terrains, very different environments. Every episode was like a whole new like place on the map. So they were gonna need a Game of Thrones scale type of budget to even shoot the first season.
Have you seen a budget for the show at all? Like how much they're spending on this?
I haven't seen it. They haven't released it. But if the original creators were complaining about, hey, this is not going to be enough, I would trust them to some degree.
It says right here, so I'm looking up, it says Netflix most expensive show. It definitely is not what I predicted it to be. This is from filmdaily.co. It says the most expensive show that Netflix has is The Crown. They do $130 million per season. Like, wow. I was not expecting that as an answer.
How much is Game of Thrones?
Let's see. Game of Thrones.
That's the type of budget you're gonna need for Avatar: Last Airbender's live action.
It says I believe this is season 8. I'm looking at. It says with episodes estimated to cost a whopping $15 million per episode. In Game of Thrones season 8, there was $15 million. How many episodes were in Game of Thrones season 8?
I think it was like 6 or 8.
6 or 8, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, multiply that times 15 million. Yeah, there was 6 episodes in Game of Thrones season. There was 6 episodes in season 8, and it's $15 million. How much was that a season? How much was that season?
It's around like 90 million.
90 million. So that's oof. So you would maybe need somewhere around 100 million, 120 million if you're gonna do like an Avatar show.
Yeah, because think about it. Think about how much it costs just to do the bending. Like, we haven't even gotten into like the world building. We're just talking about the bending itself. You know.
And like, can you pull off the Avatar: The Last Avatar: The Last Airbender movie budget was $150 million. And then those scenes, I don't know whether it was the direction or what, but the bending scenes in that movie look like fucking ass. They looked terrible. And maybe with if they had the original creators on, maybe they could do it like how they did the show, or you bring on somebody, who knows like martial arts, who brings like a special coordinator to come on and really do all the action scenes and make it, really, make it look like actual fighting instead of just people kind of waving their arms around and kicking and all this other stuff.
And that's what they did for the show. They had if you went to like their behind the scenes for the show, they had a whole team of martial artists consulting them on like, all right, this is how they move, like this is how the earthbenders move, this is how the firebenders move. Try to write it so it sticks to that fighting style. But we'll see. I mean, like, if they're worried that the show that is currently their most watched show right now, Avatar: Last Airbender, does not deserve the budget that the creators of that said show need, they have their priorities like messed up. Like these dudes, the main critique that they had was that these guys haven't Brian Konietzko and Michael DiMartino have relatively limited live action experience, but they created the show. So, you know, they wrote it. They created these characters. They know how it goes, and they know how to tell a great story, a classic. You know?
I mean, the animated series was. It's hard to find any issues with it. I mean, I think it was pretty much a masterpiece, you know. And storytelling, the way they really developed the characters, the way they had the whole kind of, you could do the monster of the week type thing when they fight somebody, and you could build the overall story. The redemption arc of Zuko was really great. That was incredibly well done. Of course, Uncle Iroh is one of the best paternal, father figure characters in all of media, I think. And also the action was incredibly good. Like all the martial arts, like I said, them basing it in, real life martial arts. Everybody had their own, the water tribe, the earth tribe, the fire tribe. Everybody had their own specific, unique style and technique that they used to fight. It wasn't just one, universal, and there were also different types of, even within that tribe, you know what I mean? The waterbenders, they had different types of waterbenders. If you were in a different area in the world, those waterbenders didn't like the waterbenders that was Zuko, not Zuko, Katara was from.
Yeah.
Which was very nice.
Like you had the swamp benders.
Yeah, you had the swamp benders, yeah, which was very nice.
Yeah, you had the northern water tribe. And then, with her, you had her representing the Southern Water Tribe style, or developing style. And it's just disappointing that they don't see this as a priority as it should be. Because if they were to do it right, they would already have the audience for it, and it would make them millions. It would easily double what they spent on it within the first day. I guarantee you that. Yeah. But the next issue that Brian and Mike had, which is probably going to be the most controversial part of this series, if it doesn't get canceled somehow, the casting choices. According to some articles, the casting choices that Netflix had, they wanted to open the pool racial, in terms of races. So they wanted some white actors for certain characters, or the potential for some white actors to audition for those set areas. And this is an Asian story.
Right.
There are some arguments in the past.
The movie all over again.
Yeah, it's basically just the movie all over again. Even though you had an South Asian director for The Last Airbender, he still somehow ended up casting white people as the main protagonists. And he casted his own race as the bad guys, which so ironic, I guess, Right. But it's all the same issues all over again. Yes, you could say, oh, the creators, this isn't their culture, them writing it is appropriating, but they did it justice, At the time, you didn't see that many Asian characters. I think all we had was, in terms of cartoons, Jake Long and Jackie Chan adventures.
Right.
So to have
Samurai Jack.
Oh yeah, you did have Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack is goated. I will say that. But before, outside of those three, you just had Avatar. And the way Avatar touches on the philosophy of Eastern Asian cultures is something that I pray that they somehow get. But without the original creators, I can't see them doing it. Especially if they cast white people. But
it just kind of just feels like the movie all over again, like they learned nothing.
Yeah. Now, you want to make a bet on who they cast in terms of races for like Aang, Katara, and Sokka?
So if they have the Wind tribe, I think
Air nomads?
Yeah, the air nomads. I don't think, you know what? I think they're gonna be white. I think the water tribe will be. I think they're gonna be like some vague shade of brown. Like it's gonna be like, you know how like certain actors, like you can't really tell, racially ambiguous. Like maybe you could be this, maybe you could be that. They're gonna be like some vague
tribe.
Pretty much. The Fire Nation, I think they're gonna be Asian. I think
I'm gonna be so sick if all the
Fire Nation is gonna be Asian.
I'm gonna be so sick if all the good guys are white and then all the Fire Nation is Asian. I'm gonna be so sick for y'all.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I think that's what's gonna be.
Now, here's my hot take on the casting choices.
What do you think about the Earth tribe? I mean, the Earthbender.
I think so. The Earth Kingdom, they might have some liberty to get away with a few black people. I think. I don't think Toph is gonna be black. I'm praying that they make her Asian, but what will likely happen is that she's like tan to some degree. But what I think they're gonna do is with the Water Tribe, they're gonna have some black people in there, cause like back in the day, we used to think Katara and Sokka were black. So, you know,
Really?
Cause at worst case, you know, at least they're black. At least they're not white, you know? So I do think Katara and Sokka have a high chance, if they're not Asian, they're gonna cast them black. I'm betting that. I'm making that bet. Now Aang's definitely gonna be white. I'm sorry. It's just gonna happen. There is no saving that kid. Like, you know?
Yeah, I think he's gonna be white. I think a lot of the air nomads are gonna be white.
Yeah, and it's gonna be so weird to see them. It's gonna be like Doctor Strange all over again. Yeah, it's gonna be like Tilda Swinton all over again with the air nomads. It's a bunch of bald white ladies doing kung fu.
The races in the show. So the Water Tribe they were Eskimos.
Yeah.
They were Eskimos. And then the Fire Tribe were definitely Asian. They were definitely Asian.
Had a lot of like Japanese inspired architecture.
Yeah, Japanese. The air nomads, they were, what would you say, like they were?
They're monks, dude.
They were monks. So, okay. Tibetan monks. And then the Earthbenders, it seemed like that was more diverse, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they were more around in urban environments. So what typically race were Earthbenders?
I'd say like, ideally, I would pick like Vietnamese, like Indonesian. You know what I'm saying? Like those like southeastern like ethnicities. I would pick them for the Earth Kingdom roles. Because like if you go back to the show, they had more of like a brown skin tone to them. Most of them, like Haru, and like some of those guys were like more darker skin. So I would cast more southeastern, and maybe a few like I don't see any harm in casting any like South Asian, like Indian, Pakistani even potentially, in terms of for the Earth Kingdom, because that was kind of like the most like in terms of like skin color, they were like the most diverse group. But the other tribes, they were all sort of like They were all obviously Asian, and I don't know why they're doing this. Like, they know they're gonna cause controversy with this. They've done this before with Death Note. You remember Death Note?
Yeah, like they made him white. They made Lakeith Stanfield, his character L. They made him black with Lakeith Stanfield. Yeah. I didn't. Yeah. But you know who could play in the Avatar cast? Scarlett Johansson. Just cast Scarlett Johansson. As you see from this photo right here, Scarlett Johansson is Aang. Scarlett Johansson is Zuko. Scarlett Johansson is Azula. Scarlett Johansson is Suki. Scarlett Johansson is Zhao. Scarlett Johansson is Katara. Soap. Toph. Just Uncle Iroh. Just have her play everybody.
Just do it like an Eddie Murphy movie where he played everybody. Just let ScarJo just go off as everybody.
Just have her play everybody.
Instant Emmys. Emmys all around the board for every position.
Have her, she's ready. I think she's fully ready. She can play anything.
And speaking of ScarJo, you wouldn't have an age problem with the Netflix series because apparently they're trying to mature the audience or mature the tone of the series, and I think that was probably like the last straw that Brian and Mike had with where the production was going. Cause
like you talking about in terms of violence?
So they're talking about not just violence, they're talking about aging up the characters, and for whatever reason they're giving them sex scenes.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
I guess they're trying I guess they're trying to accommodate the people who grew up watching the show when it came out. Now they're in their early 20s. I guess they're trying to accommodate those people, I guess.
Which I think is ironic because those very same people were the ones that blew up Netflix watching the original. And it holds up very well, mind you. But
would you want to see, like, if they do like more of a mature, would you want to see like more, like, because like I know in the show sometimes like they would do the firebenders who you have the most dangerous element, which is fire, and then they would kind of hit people with the fire and they kind of just get knocked back, like they wouldn't really like burn, you know what I mean? Like, would you want to see something like that?
So in terms of action, I'm kind of on board. Because I do think it would be cooler, and especially like the final fights with like Zuko versus Azula and Aang versus Ozai. Like, I do think those fights could be very dynamic with the added physical action of it. Because a lot of Avatar fights are very like far away. I'm throwing a rock at you. You get hit by the rock and you get pushed back. I throw fire at you, just like you said, and you just get pushed back. I think they could go in an interesting direction with that. But what worries me is the whole romance and like sex angle of it. You know?
Yeah. It's funny, like watching the show. They did a lot of the, like what they do in media, like when with characters, like everybody marries their first love, like everybody, like your first crush, they marry and have kids with them. Like nobody dated anyone else, nobody hooked up, like everybody just kind of stayed together, which was kind of crazy. But I mean, it seems like trying to mature, trying to add sex scenes in it. I don't. I mean, I would have to see it. It depends on what you did, particularly like if you did it, in what way you showed them, and what way you shot it, and what way it led up to it.
Josh, I have one question.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the Suki Sokka sex scene? That was alluded to in season 3.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how they shoot it. I mean, yeah. I mean, it sounds bad now, but I don't know. I would want to see it. I mean, so after all this that you've heard, would you at least watch the first episode?
See, that's the thing. Unfortunately, I am gonna watch it. It just is what it is. Like, it's like Kamala and Biden all over again. Like, I kind of just have to settle with it because I'm just gonna end up watching it. Like, I love the original series. It's the same reason why I still watch the movie. Even though I knew it was gonna be bad. I was just like, well,
I still haven't seen the movie.
Don't do that to yourself. But it's like a train wreck that you just have to see for yourself, you know? You can't take your eyes away from it. But are you, on a scale from M. Night Shyamalan to Legend of Korra Book 2, how bad do you think this is gonna be?
I was just gonna ask you, how did you feel about Legend of Korra after Avatar? How did you feel about that?
So Legend of Korra I like a lot. I do think it has its flaws. Like Book 2 is terrible, but given the context of what happened around it, where Nickelodeon was like, hey, you're not gonna have a season 2, and then out of nowhere, out of the blue, they were like, hey, can you write season 2 really quickly for us? We can actually use you to boost up our ratings. It kind of just sucks, but I do think season 2 has redeeming qualities. Like, have you seen it?
Legend of Korra? Yeah, I watched it, all of it. I probably would need to rewatch it again because I, it's like Avatar. Like I've watched all of it, but I haven't seen it in a while, and I will need to rewatch all of it again.
Okay, because season 2 has some redeeming qualities to it, even though it's bad, and it sets up the great seasons like season 3 and season 4 with what happens with like the spirit realm, giving everybody airbending and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, like it
I
sets.
know a lot of people kind of didn't like that.
I mean, they ended up liking season 3, so I feel like season 2 was so bad, but it set up season 3 to be amazing, But how'd you like Korra? Because the main gripe people seem to have is that she loses a lot, apparently, which she doesn't. I don't know if you noticed. I don't know if we watched the same series, but same series.
I don't remember her losing a lot. I remember like her being so incredibly like indecisive that would really make me frustrated. Like she didn't know what to do, and she would always question herself every single time. I'm like, well, just make a fucking decision. I mean, Jesus Christ. Like, I get it's a tough thing, and she would sit there and she would, really talk to the other avatars and do all this. I'm like, just make a fucking decision. Just really just do it. Like, I mean, Aang would have those moments in the show. Because I know, like for instance, he would bounce around between whether or not to kill the main villain of the show. I forgot his name. You said Zai?
Zai.
Oh, Zai, yeah. And, and he would talk to the other avatars, and they would go like, listen, just fucking murk the guy. Like, what's the issue? Like, that's your job. Just fucking murk the dude, bro. Like, that's your fucking job. Like, it's like what you're supposed to, your purpose is. But yeah, but he still made a decision, and then there was a whole thing where she kind of went Dark Knight Rises and kind of went and kind of hid away and all this other stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't really like that all too much.
I think it deserves a rewatch because I didn't hate her character in season 2. I do think because of the way the writing was, she kind of took a step backwards in her development. But from season 3 and onward, I did start to like her character, because what happens to her in season 3 was just like kind of traumatic. Like, she loses like all of her past lives in season 2. Then she like damn near gets killed by the main villain. I'm pretty sure like multiple times. in season 3. So like by season 4, she feels like she didn't save the world. She felt like, you know, like, because I'm pretty sure she had like a ton of help in season 3. So she kind of felt defeated. So by season 4, it was kind of like that whole like, all right, I'm rebuilding back who I am, you know? And when she fights the main villain in season 4, she's kind of like a renewed person. But yeah, I don't know how they're going to do this. I think to go back to like the scale question between like M. Night Shyamalan or Legend of Korra season 2 bad, I think they're gonna go like damn near Shyamalan bad, or they're gonna create their whole new tier of bad, like what it means to be a bad Avatar adaptation.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not really looking all that much forward to it. I mean, if it's bad, it's bad, and I was just kind of like going, oh, okay, well, whatever. I still got 2 really good series I can still watch, or you can read the comic books, you know. So it doesn't really, I don't think, all that much does anything, you know, if it is bad. You know, it's not going to ruin anything, you know.
Yeah, it's not going to ruin the series.
Yeah. So, like I said, special thanks to our guest, Merrick, for coming on, discussing very, very much needed insight and insightful commentary. Check out everything Afternoon Tune Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and just don't forget to just type in Afternoon Tune, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. Just check out everything Afternoon Tune. You'll find us somewhere there, and I'll be checking all our various pages. And don't forget to always stay tuned.